Hello everybody, it's Christina and welcome back to my library. This is my mid-year book freakout tag. I'm a little late on this one too. I mentioned in my last two videos I just got a puppy, so I'm a little behind because I've been trying to take care of her and make sure she's all set and ready to go. But I did want to do this video, and since I'm using my phone to record this, I actually ended up writing everything out on a notebook, so I knew what I was actually talking about, because I'm sure with my mom brain I'm gonna forget. But anyway, the first book, or the first question in this tag, and I hopefully will remember to link where this originated. I don't actually know. I'm gonna have to look, and then I'll just put it in the description box below, but I know a bunch of YouTubers have been doing this one, and it's definitely one that I wanted to participate in as well. And so the first question is, best book you've read in 2019. Now, I've actually got 3 books for this, because I couldn't choose just one. That's a loaded question, and it's impossible to answer without actually doing more than one. So the first book that I really loved in 2019 so far is Scythe by Neal Shusterman, and this is a kind of like post-apocalyptic, what's the word I'm looking for? Dystopian type novel where people are immortal now. There's nobody dies from natural causes, and in order to control the population, they have this group of people called scythes that then go out and kill people to, keep population regulated. And they usually, base it off of, if this person did something dangerous, they could have died if there wasn't immortality now. So that's how it works, and it was a really good book. I think I flew through this. This book I read back in January, and I think it only took me like a day or two to read this. I really, really liked it. The characters are great, and I did also already read Thunderhead, which I thought was great as well, and I'm so excited for The Toll, which actually I forgot to put on this list, but I'll talk about that when I get to it. The next book that I read in 2019 that I absolutely loved is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I also really liked Vengeful as well. So let's just say this whole series, I don't actually own Vengeful, I got it from my library, but I really enjoyed Vicious. This is another one of those books where you don't really like a lot of the characters, but that's by design. And you're basically following this group of people who have supernatural abilities, and there's one guy that's trying to stop the other guy, and it's just, I can't really talk too much about it without giving a lot of spoilers, but it was just such a well-written book. It takes place with several different points of views, as well as several different timelines, and while that sounds like it's hard to follow, it's actually really not. This is another book that I flew through at the beginning of the year. I think I read this either right before or right after Scythe, so I had a pretty good reading month back in January. And finally, the last book that I read in 2019 that I absolutely loved was Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, and this is the second book in the Stormlight Archive series. And oh my gosh, this book blew me away. And actually, I'm not quite done reading Oathbringer right now. If I had been, I have a feeling it would have been on this list as well, because they're both just so incredible. I can't stress enough how good Brandon Sanderson is at 1, world building, and 2, plot twists. He can do both of those brilliantly, and he's got so many characters in this book that I just love. They're gonna appear later on in the other questions, but I love his writing so much, and there's no way that I could not do this, answering this question, without talking about a Brandon Sanderson book. And this is like I said, the second book in the series, and it's huge. I think it's also like 1,200 pages, 1,300 pages, but it was so worth it read. Okay, the next question is best sequel, and that is yet again Words of Radiance. I read that, like I said, when did I read this? I think it was like February or March. And it was great. The other one that I do want to kind of give an honorable mention to is Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman, and also Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I don't own either of those because I got them from my library, but they were really good too. But I have to say, if I was going to just pick one, it would be Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, the next question is new release that you really want to read but you haven't gotten a chance to yet, and there's 2 for this. The first one is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, and that follows Nikolai, I think that's his name, from the Grishaverse series. It's his own kind of series now. I loved him in the previous books, and I'm really excited to see his story, more about him, what he's been doing throughout, the other books that she's written. And then the other book that I want to read is Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence, and that is the third book in the Book of the Ancestor series trilogy. Is it a trilogy? I'm pretty sure it's a trilogy. I've listened to the other two on audiobook, and they were wonderful. So I'm really excited to read Holy Sister. I'm probably going to get that one on audiobook as well because I really like the narrator of that series. Although at some point I really do want to get the physical copies because it's a series that I could definitely read again for sure. It's very well done. It follows a group of nuns that have magic that like to, kick butt and take names, and it's just great. I love it. Next question is most anticipated release of 2019, and there are two for this one as well. The first one is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and I think this is a thriller, if I'm not mistaken. She normally does like fantasy, sci-fi, that kind of thing. So I'm really excited. Not sci-fi. Sci-fi. Where did I get that from? Fantasy. She does fantasy. But I'm really excited to read this. I've heard a lot of good things. I know people have gotten arcs of it already, and they've been really excited to read it. So I'm super excited to read that as well. I love Leigh Bardugo's writing. I loved Six of Crows. I loved, what was the other one? Do I own it? I think I own it. Where are you, Buck? There it is. Crooked Kingdom, right behind me. But yeah, both of them were great. I also loved the Grishaverse as well, so I am super excited to read that. And the other book that I'm excited for is The Institute by Stephen King, and that is, I think I mentioned in my July TBR, but I really like thrillers that take place in schools. I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but that is what this book is. And it is, I don't know much about it, but it's about this kid that gets taken to some boarding school, but it's all creepy and weird, and I'm super excited to read that one. I don't always like Stephen King, but I feel like this one I could probably get behind. The biggest disappointment of 2019 has to be Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. I couldn't do it. I DNF'd it. I know so many people liked it, but maybe it's just not my cup of tea. And I couldn't. There were too many point of views to follow, which, like I've mentioned, you've heard me say, I have no problem reading multiple point of views. I do it all the time when I read Brandon Sanderson, when I read V.E. Schwab, but I just couldn't keep up with all the characters in that book, and I just didn't care. So that was my biggest disappointment because I was really going into it thinking that I was going to like it. The next question is the biggest surprise of 2019, and that has to be another book that it's a genre that I don't typically read. So I wasn't sure what I was going to think of it, but I absolutely loved this book, and that was All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and this is a historical fiction novel, which, like I said, I don't read them all that often, but now I think after reading this and just loving it, I need to read more historical fiction. This one took place in World War II and follows the perspectives of two people, Marie and Werner, and it just follows their stories throughout the war, before the war, after the war, and it's just so well written. The next question is favorite new author, and I actually have two for this. And no, Brandon Sanderson doesn't count because I think he was my new favorite author of last year, even though I would love to put him on there again because he's just great. But no, I'm going to say two other people instead. The first one is Mark Lawrence, who wrote the Book of the Ancestor trilogy. Loved these books so much, and he's just got a really interesting writing style. The way he writes these books is like you just feel so much for these girls. You can really understand the relationships that they're going through and how they interact with each other. The whole book series, it's a series. They're so well written. I think I am a new huge fan of Mark Lawrence, and I'm excited to read other books by him as well. So he's the first one. And my second new favorite author is Neil Shusterman, and he wrote the Arc of the Scythe trilogy. Like I said, really liked Scythe. It was one of my favorite books of the year. Really liked Thunderhead, and I'm super excited for The Toll, which actually I forgot to mention. Is it getting released this year? I forgot to mention it in my most anticipated releases of 2019. I'm pretty sure it's coming out this year, but it is The Toll by Neil Shusterman, so let's add that one to there. But yeah, really like his writing as well. My newest fictional crush is the next question, and I'm going to be honest here, I don't typically crush on book characters. I don't think there's really been a character that I've been like, oh, I love them so much. But I have to say there's probably two in the Stormlight Archive series. The first one is Wit, The King's Wit. I love that guy so much. He doesn't appear a lot in the books, but like he's so smarmy and sassy, and like I love when he appears in the books. Like he's great. So the King's Wit is probably the only one that I can think of that I would have any sort of a crush on, but like I said, I don't crush on book characters all that often, so I'm just going to mention Wit. The next question is new favorite character of 2019. So there's 3 here. The first 2 come from the Stormlight Archives series, and they are Shalyn, who is one of the main characters, I would say. They follow her story a lot, and she's great because you see her grow so much over the course of these 3 books. She starts off like really unsure of herself, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of anxiety, and I loved watching her story as she grew mentally. And this is the 3rd book in the series, and Shalyn in this book versus Shalyn in The Way of Kings, there's such a huge difference, and I loved watching her grow and just become the person that she's meant to be. So her story was great. The next character is the King's Wit, who I mentioned as the crush. He's great too. And he's also very mysterious, which I think is great as well, because you don't really know a lot about him, but he's also just this wisecracking dude who just kind of like, he adds a little bit of humor without being, annoying. He's wonderful. Oh, and the last one is, I don't have the book, but I do have the first book in the series, so I'm going to hold this up for it. But I'm actually talking about Marcella from Vengeful, and I borrowed that from the library, so I don't have a physical copy. Marcella is badass. She is a really well-written female character, and she you know that saying, something about a woman scorned. What is that saying? How does that saying go? There is no anger like a woman scorned, or something like. It's like she epitomizes that, and she's just great. I loved her so much in that book. Okay, so the next question is, I think, did I skip one? No. Book that made you cry. Now this one, I think I mentioned in my last video, I don't cry a lot when I read books, but there were 2 that actually did make me tear up. Actually 3. So the first one is Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence. That is the 2nd book in the Book of the Ancestor. I was crying so hard towards one of the scenes in the end. It was the worst. Not the worst in that it was badly written. It was heartbreaking. It made me so sad. And then the second one, I don't have a copy of this as well because I borrowed it from my library, and that is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, because it was such a well-written book. And actually, it was one of those books that made you both happy and sad for different reasons, but I definitely teared up towards the end. Can't say why because it's a huge spoiler, but I really liked that one. That's written by Becky Chambers, and it's a sci-fi kind of feel-good type novel. Not, like not epic sci-fi, not high sci-fi. It's just, one of those casual ones, and it was really good, but I definitely cried towards the end there. And the last one is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and I definitely teared up during this one as well. It's a World War II book. Things were not meant to go super well for everybody, but this book was great. I really loved it. The next question is a book that made you happy, and that is again The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, for a completely different reason than when it made me cry. That book was just such a feel-good book, minus the crying at the end. It was so good. And I did also read the 2nd book, which was A Closed and Common Orbit, but I didn't really like that one as much, but The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet was just very well written, very heartwarming, and I loved it very much. The most beautiful book. So this is not because of the cover necessarily, but it's because of what is inside of the book, and that is Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. And the reason is there's some beautiful artwork in the beginning and the end of the book. There's this, and I'm not going to say what they are pictures of, but there's that. And then in the back of the book, there are these, and they're just so beautiful. I love it. And the other thing that's really cool about this book is, and I haven't even taken it out yet because I didn't want to ruin it, but there is a full color map, and I love maps in books, and this one is full color and it's beautiful. So that is why Oathbringer gets my most beautiful book pick, because it is gorgeous. And the final question is, what books do you want to read by the end of the year? So there's several. The first one, do I have it? Yeah. The first one is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I actually want to read the entire trilogy. I'm buddy reading this with my friend Lori, and I don't know how long it's going to take to get through it because we're going to just read a few chapters, talk to each other about it, read a few more. So this one's going to take a little bit longer to get through. I'm hoping to read the whole trilogy by the end of the year. We have time, so I think we'll be able to do it. So there's the whole A Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. And then this one's probably a little ambitious because the series is huge, but the entire whatever she's got written so far, basically, by Cassandra Clare. That's, 3 series right now? I'm trying to reread the Mortal Instruments, because I read that a long time ago, and I liked it, but now I'm learning that there's an actual, recommended reading order, so I'm trying to go through and read it as the author recommends. So I'm trying to read all of them. Mortal Instruments, I gotta keep looking, because I can never remember what it's called. Infernal Devices, and then Dark Artifices. I think those are the only 3 that they have, and there's some novellas which I might try to read as well. But that's kind of my plan for the year, and we'll see how far I can get. I don't know if I can get all of it done by the end of the year, but I'm going to try. So that completes my Mid-Year Book Freakout Tag. Thank you so much for watching. What did you guys have on your list? Did you do one of these? Let me know. I'd love to watch more of them. I've kind of been addicted to watching them lately. And yeah, I will see you all next time.